Hello once again, this is Brendo and you're welcome to my channel. Today we shall be looking at some UK scholarships. These are very important scholarships. They are very beautiful, good ones. However, please do note that this is one of three videos that I will be making today on UK scholarships from three different institutions. One of three videos because this one is particularly for those interested in PhD research or master's research. You can also apply for these scholarships from your bachelor's degree. So you do not necessarily need a master's degree to apply to some of these scholarships. We'll look at them. Something else to keep in mind is the deadline for these scholarships as from tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. This video will be uploaded today, the 14th of April 2025. So if any of this scholarship applies to you, please apply today. If there's anything I would recommend is while watching this video, have your laptop somewhere, have your tab somewhere, so that while watching the video, you can pause it intermittently and continue your application. If there are materials that are relevant to apply to this scholarship, I will be adding them. If you're interested, just remember to subscribe, like the video, and comment the keyword at the end of the video, and I shall send you the material. Excuse me. So without further ado, let's get right to it. If you've been watching my video, you'd notice I always mention that university-specific scholarships are the best. They are the most ideal. And how do we search for them? We have a list of universities, and then we simply type the name of the university on Google or Microsoft Bing, whichever you prefer, and type scholarship at the end. So when we do that, we simply go to the homepage or the particular web page for that. So we come here and the only filter we use would be international scholarship. However, because I've done this before, we would not go through international scholarship here. We'll simply come here to search our funding database. And when we here, you find a different subject. Now, I would not recommend picking any of these because what you think the name of your department is might not be what is here. So you might select some, but I would always recommend, please just leave this filter part out of it. If you're undergraduate, you can select that. Postgraduate thought, you can also select that. However, I've looked at the undergraduate and postgraduate thought, and there are no fully funded scholarship, just partial funding. So if you're interested, you can also check those. However, the focus on this video is on postgraduate research program, which covers MPhil, PhD, and other professions. Here we want to filter to international and we are a prospective student. And here we'll click on search all. So all type of scholarship we're interested in. And that brings us to this page. And as you can see, 1 day left, 2 day left to apply, 1 day left to apply, 3 days left to apply. So which means if any of these applies to you, if you're interested in any of these, please apply as soon as possible. This particular one is on climate change. It is funded and it is UK. Now, the value of this is UK or international tuition fees, and you have an annual tax-free stipend of at least 20 grand. This is good stuff. So if this applies to you, you can do that. You can apply to this scholarship. So this video is going to be very brief. Like I mentioned, this is one of three videos that will be done today or uploaded today on UK scholarships. So if you've seen this video, I'm also going to leave the link to the other two videos. It can also be in the description so you can attempt to watch that as well. Let's look at some of this scholarship. The University of Exeter Business School, Master's of Research and PhD scholarship in Economics. You can see that. Something to keep in mind is not all of these scholarships cover full stipend for international students. So you want to read on each of them when you open them. I'll give you an example of one. So this one mentions it's pays for the annual total plus remuneration. However, it might not cover full tuition. And remember, for some of this scholarship, you would be expected to um, do some teachings or do some work like a research assistant. Um, let's go on and look for some others. This is a research area. How can we effectively stimulate or simulate extreme weather risks? The value of these UK and international tuition fees and an annual tax-free stipend. This is a good one. There is also another one for Meta Materials PhD scholarship. You have 18 days to apply to this one. It covers your tuition fees and an annual stipend allowance. So for scholarships like this, if it applies to you, if you're interested in them, if it aligns with your goals, you can apply to this scholarship. I would mention one scholarship that I think is really very interesting. I found that really, really nice. However, of course, if you look down, you see that some scholarship are closed for the year. Let's talk about the University of Exeter Faculty of Humanities, Arts, and Social Science. Now, this is a PhD studentship. Now, if we open this, it would lead us to this part. Okay. Now, for supervisors part, just something else to keep in mind is not all of these PhD scholarships require you to send an email to a supervisor. We'll look at some later. Let's talk about this one, the University of Exeter Faculty of Humanities. And now this studentship is in communication, drama, and films. If you're interested or if this is your department or line of research, you can apply for this as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can share this video with anyone you think would find this very interesting and would want to apply to this. So we have two different types. We have PhD film by practice, and we have PhD in communication, drama, and film. And you can apply to any of these, like I said, if you have, if this is related to your area. The research will be granted for academic excellence or research potential, and then your research proposal would also make a difference. The studentship covers a period of 3 years, and then we see the maintenance grant of 20 grand, which is cool, every year. Now, the entry requirements is an area you want to pay careful attention to. And this is the first part I mentioned, that all you need is a good first degree or at least 2.1, a 2.1. So even if you have a 2.1, you can apply for this in a relevant field of humanities. Because here we are looking at humanities, art, and social science. So with a relevant department or relevant field or relevant degree in humanities, you can apply for this scholarship. Now, for PhD film by practice, now you need to know the difference between both when you read up. Now, for this particular one, you can also use a 2.1 or an international equivalent. Now, applications for PhD in communication, you were expected to still have 2.1. So you don't even need a first class to apply to this. But if you do have a first class degree, amazing. For English language requirement, I'm going to talk about that later. But this is just an example of what you need to apply. Now, how do you apply for this? To apply, you have to click on the apply button. Now, some of the documents, it's good to have all your documents before you apply to these things. You need a research proposal of 1,005 to 2,000 words. I'm going to show you an example of a research proposal. Now, instead of showing you an example, I'll give you a step-by-step guide on how to write a research proposal. I would have shown you mine, but for other issues, I would not be able to share that with you at the moment. So we're going to look at an example of a PhD research proposal, but this is for a different research area for one of the scholarships. So we'll look at that when it's time for research proposal. So you need a research proposal of 1,005 to 2,000 words with supervisors agreed in principle. I will show you an example of how to look for supervisor in this particular one, this particular scholarship. I'll show you an example of how to do that. You need a 200 to 500 word statement on your fit with the department or the faculty research culture. You need a CV. You need a portfolio of sample practice work. Would mention some of that because here you see this portfolio of sample practice. You read up on that. You need a proof of academic track record, 2 references, and at least one to be an academic reference. So you can get that from your institution. You need a proof of English language proficiency. If you have all of these, please submit it as soon as possible. For proof of this, you can read up on this. I would leave a link to this field. Once again, the application deadline is on the 19th. Today is on the 4th. Today is 14th. So you can apply for this scholarship. Please do not sleep on this. Now, I mentioned for some of this one, you need to perhaps send a message to the supervisors or any potential supervisors in the department. How do we get there? Simple. We'll simply go to our department. We click on Faculty of Humanities and Art and Social Science. We go to that department is communication, drama, and film. And then we come to people. When it comes to people, we look out for leadership team. And from leadership team, you can find all of them here. So you can send a message to each of these persons, or you can include them in the application form that you've contacted these ones and they've approved or agreed to be your supervisor. Okay, now like I mentioned earlier, for some of the other scholarship, okay, just one moment. Let us discuss this one. For those in literature or in humanities, this is another good scholarship. Remembering William Shakespeare, English is a PhD scholarship. However, this only covers UK tuition fees and an annual maintenance allowance. It doesn't cover the international student fee. Now, let me explain what that means. Supposing the tuition fee for home student is £6,000. If the tuition fee for home student is £6,000, for international students, it could be, say, 10 or £14,000. If that is the case, then you have to pay the difference. So 14,000 minus 6,000, and then that will give you 8,000. So you have to pay £8,000 every month. Is this doable? It is doable. However, I don't want to raise your hopes high. It is doable. I have a friend who also received a scholarship like this. And what she does is when she receives a stipend, which is for this particular one, we have the stipend at 20 grand every year. So that is about 1,500 or 1,600 every month. From that, she also pays her tuition. And remember, as a student, you're still allowed to work up to 20 hours in the United Kingdom, so you can still have extra money. If you think you've assessed this and you've evaluated your circumstances, remember, you make the decision, not me. I am just recommending and suggesting if you're interested in this and you can apply to this, you can go ahead and do it. There are people who do it. But if you think it will be too much of a burden, do not risk it. Always calculate the expense before you make the move. So, how now just go back to sharing my screen and then we'll return to the page. So how do you apply to this one? You need a covering letter, you need a CV, proof of academic track record, 2 references, and proof of English language proficiency. We'll talk about this proof of English language proficiency later. This video is a quick one. Like I mentioned, again, it's 1 out of 3 that would be done today on UK scholarship. So you should also look out for the other 2. Now, let's go back to the other scholarship. Let's talk about this one. For anyone interested in climate change and development and disease, please apply to this scholarship. They are really good and they cover full tuition both for home students and international students. One of them I want us to look at is this one. There are 2 days left. Covers home and international tuition fees plus an annual tax-free stipend of 19 grand for 3.5 years of your program. Now, this is the bullwhip effect in supply chains. The interesting thing about this one, you already have a primary supervisor and you already have your secondary supervisors. All you just do is click on them and then you can do that. You could even include these in your application form and you have more information here to send them an email. So please do this. You also need to apply with your CV, a personal statement. In my previous videos, I've mentioned how you can write a personal statement, and there are examples on personal statement. So if you need an example of a personal statement, you can send me you can comment on the section, and I would respond to you. You need your transcript, you need 2 references, and if you're not, you also need English language proficiency. And remember, the closing date is in 2 days. So I would upload this video as soon as possible. Please apply ASAP. Now, say we want to submit a research proposal for something like this topic. So we want to submit a research proposal. Now, not all of them. For example, this particular PhD does not ask you for a research proposal. It simply asks you for a personal statement and gives you a sample of a personal statement. That's amazing. It doesn't ask you for a research proposal. But say, for example, you ask for the one you're interested in, you need a research proposal. Here is a sample of a research proposal on that same topic. Now, instead of giving you a research proposal, what I have done is giving you a guide, a step-by-step guide on how to write an effective research proposal, and not just what it should contain, but how you can write that section. Excuse me. How you can write that section and what is important about that section. Something to keep in mind that distinguishes some PhD proposal is a timeline or a time scale. Always do this in a tabular form. You could also use color coding for the different parts to show what you'll be doing. Now, this is just a rough sketch of what should happen on your first year, second year, and third year. In mine, it is more detailed than this. In my first year, I used semesters, and that's why the recommendation is here, use semesters or terms to divide time. Now, this is essential. So if you need this document, please let me know and I should send it to you. Just indicate your interest in the chat section. So the final thing for today on this one is the English language requirements. If we go to this web page, it mentions that for English language requirements, of course, the usual test of IELTS or TOEFL and other language tests, you can check the university web page on that. But there are other ways of meeting English language requirement. This is where I'm interested in. You can, if you're from a majority English speaking countries, if you're not from any of these, now let's go to the second part, which is cool. You were taught in English. If you were taught in English, you finished your program within the past 2 years or within the past 5 years, and you did your bachelor's degree in English, or you can provide a medium of instruction letter. If you can provide a medium of instruction letter, amazing. I have a sample of a medium of instruction letter that I used for my master's program. So if you need a sample of a medium of instruction letter, send me a message or just comment on the section. But remember, to do that, you still need to subscribe and like the video. Just use the keyword and tell me you need an example of the medium of instruction letter, and I would send you a direct copy to download that. Remember, if you've graduated with a bachelor's degree, taught and examined in English in the past 7 years, you can still apply for this exemption. So that can then exempt you. So once again, guys, please do not sleep on this scholarship. If any of this aligns with your goals or your research area, your research interest, or your field, do not save this for later. As you've seen, some of these would expire tomorrow or the day after or on Friday. So as soon as you can, please submit this application. Once again, if you find this video interesting, please do like the video and subscribe. It encourages me. But more importantly, it's beneficial too, so that other people can see the video. Something else to keep in mind, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that this is one of 3 videos on UK scholarship. So if you've watched to this point, I'm going to leave a link to the other 2 videos. Please watch the other 2 videos too. You could find the one that really applies to you, and all the best in your scholarship pursuit.